Alright, you all saw the title of the video. Today we are covering which 40k equipment and vehicles would be useful to IRL militaries. We shall be dividing their usefulness to three separate military classes, those being number 1, professional militaries with high budgets that are prepared to fight near-peer opponents. So think USA, who is now rearming for a conventional war against China. Number 2, less economically well-off countries that are mostly using their militaries for counterinsurgency operations against poorly trained and equipped rebel forces and religious extremists. So think like Nigeria, Burkina Faso and Mali, who are mostly fighting the Islamic State fighters. Number 3, very poor countries mostly relying on poorly equipped, unmotivated and undersupplied tribal militias that are also mostly fighting other tribal militias. So think like the war in Yemen, Libya and to a certain extent, but not really, in Sudan. Things we shall be considering in this assessment are, but are not limited to, ease of maintenance, logistical needs, construction difficulties, and effectiveness on the battlefield. But before we jump in, more than 88% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so if you enjoy this one, remember to use your 88mm flag gun to hit the like and subscribe button. Okay, enough shilling, let's just get into it. First, let's cover the humble lasgun. I won't keep you in suspense for this one, the lasgun is a 10 out of 10, every single tier of military would use it. Lasgun is such a clear improvement on every single metric over gunpowder weapons we use today. Let's first talk ease of maintenance. Lasgun is said to be so reliable that it basically only needs to be checked once every year. If it's seeing constant action, then that would probably be cut to like 5 to 6 months, which is still way better than almost constant maintenance of regular gunpowder weapons that need to be regularly cleaned, lubricated, and some of their parts like the primer pin periodically replaced. Now let's talk about logistics. Lasguns don't need any logistical tails for their ammunition, because their magazines absorb the surrounding heat and somehow turn it into energy. So basically you can just set the mag on the ground and let the sun recharge it, or just chuck it into the campfire if you are in a particular hurry. Although the latter one is not advised, since it can damage the mag and turn it into a frag. This is without a doubt the best feature of the lasgun. Not needing to send ammunition to the front leaves the logistical train free to perform other features like carrying more artillery ammo, extra rations, more spare parts, firewood, oil, and myriad of other goodies. Now let's cover the construction difficulties. And there are none. Lasgun is said to be so simple to mass produce that even feudal planets can create their own variants. It's said that it's able to be produced from whatever materials are lying around and still be able to perform at least semi-effectively. Now, of course, with better manufacturing standards, you're gonna get better power output and reliability. But the point is that you can choose to either go with the mass production, reduced power out, or the quality production, extra power out. So basically, it fits whatever your country needs. Now, let's talk about its combat effectiveness. Contrary to popular belief, and I will fully admit that I'm part of the problem on this one, lasguns don't usually fire beams that crack concrete. Yes, they can do that, but just gonna deplete the power of the lasback so much that it's just not worth it. They usually fire beams that are comparable to our own 5.56 or 7.62 rounds, which, if you really take the time to think about it, makes a lot of sense. So out of a 10-man enemy squad, one guy is injured and can't fight, so the other 2 to 4 have to render the first aid and put him on a stretcher to get him out of the fight. That would mean that 5 guys, at least temporarily, aren't participating in the fight, so you have just effectively cut the enemy's firepower in half. If you had just killed the guy, then the enemy's firepower would have been at 9 out of 10 guys, aka 90%. Now, of course, this is only used in fights against Eldar, Tau, and other humans. In fights against orcs and the Nids, you would for sure up the firepower dial close to the max. Ammo efficiency be damned. Next up is the Leman Russ. Let's cover the pros and cons of the Leman Russ real quick. We shall be picking the standard variant carrying the heavy bolter in the hull and the battle cannon for this scenario. First, the pros. It's easy to maintain, it's reliable, it has a relatively inexpensive construction, and it has a decent firepower with its 120mm main cannon. Now onto the cons. It has a weak armor, only 150mm stick at the front and even less at the sides and rear. For reference, RPG-7 can penetrate 300 to 600mm. Hell, even Panzerfaust from World War II can penetrate 200mm. Next, it has either a very rudimentary computer fire control system or straight up none at all, depending on the variant and place of construction. Next, it has very limited internal storage, and thermals alongside night vision are straight up not present on basically any variants. So would they be useful for high-tech militaries? No, not really. Leman Russ is still very vulnerable to drones and even to RPGs. I guess if you really wanted to give it a use case, it could prove useful as a quick garrison response force on islands against naval invasions, due to, naval landing vehicles not particularly having the best armor and firepower in the world. So because Leman Russ probably takes 10 to 20 times less man hours to build than an M1, you could build an armada of them relatively fast, and then ship them off to islands to free up the M1s there for the frontline duty. But you could also just as well simply reactivate the M60s from storage and keep the factories free to only focus on building the M1s, instead of retooling them to build a whole new design. So most likely no, the first class militaries would not build nor use the Leman Russ. But what about their use against insurgents in places like Mali? Well, it's still most likely no. Even though insurgents are poorly equipped, they still have the RPGs, and no matter where you hit the Leman Russ with an RPG, you're gonna penetrate and most likely cause it to explode. Because again, Leman Russ doesn't use any blowout panels. And I don't even know why would you want a tank to fight insurgents. Against insurgencies, you are most likely going out to perform patrol missions. Your biggest threat is getting ambushed, and when you get into an ambush situation, what you want is a rapid firepower, not a 120mm cannon that needs 10 to 15 seconds to reload and a whole mounted machine gun that can't participate in the action. Alongside that, you don't want a tank like the Leman Russ, in whom's ammunition is placed directly on the sides of the vehicle, where the RPG is most likely to hit and blow it up. So most likely no for this scenario as well. Now with militia versus militia fighting, it's a whole different universe. Militia fights are usually very low intensity, mostly consisting of artillery duels and sniping. And I don't just mean rifle sniping, you can also snipe with tanks, especially in Yemen, which is a very mountainous place where militias usually occupy the tops of mountains. So if you have a tank, you can use it to target the enemy's mountain whilst they can't retaliate against you because RPGs simply don't have the range to get to you. You can see in Yemeni's civil war that forces on both sides used very outdated tanks like the Su-100s and even T-34s to do just this. Also because Leman Russ is so simple to operate, cheap to produce and easy to maintain, it would be an ideal armored vehicle to produce for very much cash-strapped governments on both sides of the conflict. Next up is the Chimera. Just like with the lasgun, I won't keep you in suspense with the answer. Chimera is a clear yes, it would be used. In first grade militaries, it wouldn't completely replace, let's say, a Bradley, because Bradley still has better fire control, night vision, thermals, and arguably even armor. But due to Chimera's ease of production and maintenance alongside its las cannon main armament that, just like the lasgun, doesn't require ammunition, it would certainly be used in times of war to quickly equip reservists, new recruits, and second line formations. In insurgency operations, it's less valuable, but due to its cost, it still may prove to be a semi-effective means of transporting soldiers from position A to position B, whilst at least still protecting them from the small arms fire. In militia fights, it would also be effective for the same reasons as the Leman Russ, except now it has an added benefit that it can also carry infantry, alongside being slightly cheaper, and not needing any ammunition. Okay, last vehicle, at least for this video. If you would like this to turn into a series, give this video a like and tell me in the comments that you would like to see more. But for this video, our last vehicle is the Deathstrike missile, and well, although it does have a lot of variants, I'll be sticking with the most boring one, that being a nuke. Let's first rule out their use by the militias and the budget militaries. Missiles literally carry nukes and are about as expensive, so realistically only first class militaries could build and operate them. And I can't quite decide would they be useful or not, so I'll leave it up to you to decide for yourself. Let's start off with why they would be useful. At first stage of the launch, they are literally ICBMs that go into the low orbit and then head to their target. Because they are also placed on the tracked vehicle chassis, they can easily change change their position and camouflage themselves amongst the foliage and wait there till the right moment. Now onto the cons. After the ballistic stage, they start flying, or more accurately, gliding towards their target. Although they have a computer system inside that will try to deploy flares and avoid all the incoming AA missiles, it's said that their interception isn't all that hard. So it's best to use them against unsuspecting opponents with little to no air defense. If they can be intercepted in 40k that has 1970s or generously 1980s radar and AA tech, imagine how well they would fare on a modern battlefield against S-300s and Patriot systems. So I don't know, choose for yourself. But those are just my opinions. If you disagree or even agree, comment your thoughts in the comment section down below, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends. Until the next time, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.